created in 1979 by America's cable television companies. Now from Belgrade, state-run Serbian news on day 35 of NATO airstrikes on Yugoslavia. This 35-minute portion was recorded Tuesday afternoon here at C-SPAN in Washington.
You are watching the evening news of Radio Television Serbia. President of the Republic Slobodan Milosevic, in honor of April 27th, National Day of Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, laid a wreath at the tomb of an unknown hero at Avala. Upon laying of a wreath dedicated to those who gave their lives for their homeland, national Yugoslav anthem was performed. After that, President of the Republic wrote a personal dedication into the memorial book for the glory of Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and its heroic defense from the aggression, for the glory of the heroic people of Yugoslavia and struggle for freedom.
President of
Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milosevic, received congratulatory messages from a number of heads of states. The messages from leaders of friendly states reiterated solidarity and strong support for the heroic defense of our people against NATO aggression, as well as belief that our people will be able to defend their freedom. In honor of the National Day of Yugoslavia, President Milosevic received cordial greetings from the President of Russian Federation, Yeltsin. The message reiterated full support of Russian leadership to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Yugoslavia, and further stressed that Russia was doing everything possible to find a political solution to the crisis. Expressing deep solidarity of the Russian people with the people of Yugoslavia, the message further expressed a desire for peace in Yugoslavia. The message from President of Belarus, Lukashenko, which was sent in honor of the National Day of Yugoslavia, it was stated that Belarus people were outraged by a NATO aggression against Yugoslavia, and that it wished Yugoslav people to defend itself from the aggression. Wishing Yugoslav people to remain strong and united, President Lukashenko expressed that further expansion of close ties between Yugoslavia and Belarus was needed, and that the ties were founded on historic and spiritual unity of our people. The message of Chinese President Jiang Zemin expressed deep respect of Chinese people to the people of Yugoslavia, who are determined in their resolve to defend themselves from the aggression, as well as firm opposition of China against NATO aggression. The letter further expressed the desire for the relations between Yugoslavia and China to expand. President Jiang Zemin stressed that China adamantly required NATO to stop its aggression and that China will continue with its effort to find a peaceful solution to the crisis. Expressing best wishes of the people of India, President of India, Kocheril Ramanarayanan, reiterated his hopes for continuing strengthening of relations between Yugoslavia and India. Congratulatory messages were sent by presidents of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, Tanzania, Benjamin Kappa, Federal Republic of Vietnam, Trang Duc Luong, Ethiopia, Megaso Gidada, Kenya, Daniel Arap Moi, President of Korean Presidency, Kim Jong-nam, and dignitaries from around the world. In the greetings of the chairman of Permanent Pan-Chinese Congress, Li Peng, which was sent to the chairman of both parliamentary chambers, Srdja Božović and Milomir Minić, it was stated that Chinese people admire the Yugoslav efforts to defend themselves from the aggression and that China shall continue its efforts to find a peaceful settlement to Kosovo crisis. Socialist People's Party of Montenegro congratulated President Milosevic on the National Day of Yugoslavia, stating the following: "In these difficult times when our country is faced with a brutal aggression causing death among innocent civilians and destruction of property, we believe that we shall prevail because the truth and justice are on our side." This was stated in the message of the Socialist People's Party of Montenegro, signed by Zoran Žežić, its president. The letter sent by President of the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Živko Radišić, to Slobodan Milosevic, stated the following: "In the hopes that the brutal war will soon cease and that a peaceful and just solution to this crisis will be found, we would like to assure the constitutional institutions and people of Yugoslavia of our deep respect and support in their just struggle against the aggression." In a letter from the President of Republika Srpska, Nikola Popošin, it was stated that a dignified resistance to brutal aggression combined with the invincible spirit of our people shall stop the enemy and prevent further suffering of innocent people and aggressive aspirations of anti-democratic and anti-humanitarian NATO aggressor. In honor of April 27, National Day, federal government sent best wishes to all of the citizens of our country, expressing its admiration and recognition of their heroic resistance to NATO aggression. Federal Republic of Yugoslavia is a reflection of historic interests of Serbia and Montenegro, their centuries-old statehood, and the fact that they represent a part of European and global civilizational processes. Defense of our country is another contribution of our people to the creation and development of a global structure based on the respect for equal rights of all countries, people, and ethnic communities. This is why this year's anniversary is more than a celebration of the National Day. Federal government adopted a document on consequences of NATO aggression on the environment in Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. It was concluded that Yugoslav diplomacy informed the international community that in attacking civilian facilities, NATO violated a number of international regulations which prescribe that war operations may not target facilities whose destruction may cause widespread environmental damage in the region, Europe, and planet Earth. Federal government was informed that a large number of international organizations and well-known individuals strongly supported its appeal and that they supported the end of the bombing of our country. Federal government also concluded that all state agencies were efficiently monitoring the environmental consequences of NATO aggression, working on removing the adverse effects. Federal government called upon all relevant state agencies to issue appropriate warnings relating to prevention of health hazard to our citizens. In honor of the National Day, Colonel General Nebojša Pavković, commander of the Third Army, awarded medals to officers, non-commissioned personnel, and soldiers for their bravery in defending the country, and also those who were honored by the decree of Slobodan Milošević of April 5th. The medals were awarded to the following individuals. Medal for bravery and the rank of colonel posthumously were awarded to Jovic Zoran. Medal of the Knight's Sword of the first degree was awarded to Captain Kerkez Goran. Medal for achievements in defense and security was awarded to Privates Milanovic Sasha, Grujic Zoran, Dejan Đurić, and First Class Lieutenant Lakićević Dragan. Medal for bravery was awarded to Colonels Derić Božidar, Jelić Krsman, Đurković Mladen, Mandić Miloš, Gergar Mihajlo, Trajković Siniša, Đosan Miloš, Lieutenant Colonel Janković Miličko, Đurović Ljubinko. Major Dinčevski Dragutin, first class captain, an enemy of that caliber who attacked our country. You went into the fight bravely. We achieved excellent. Commander of Pristina Corps. General Pavković also assured the people, a commander-in-chief, that there were many heroes like these ones, but that the greatest hero of all were our people. Dejan Đurić and First Class Lieutenant Lakićević Dragan. Medal for bravery was awarded to Colonels Derić Božidar, Jelić Krsman, Đurković Mladen, Mandić Miloš, Gergar Mihajlo, Trajković Siniša, Đosan Miloš, Lieutenant Colonel Janković Miličko, Đurović Ljubinko. Major Dinčevski Dragutin, First Class Captain Stanković Ivica, Captains Mihajlović Bratislav and Đokić Milovan. The medal for bravery was also awarded to the journalist of Radio Television Serbia, Milovan Drecel, and cameraman Magoči Tomislav. The medal of a war flag of the First Order was awarded to General Major Lazarević Vladimir, commander of Pristina Corps. General Pavković also assured the people, a commander-in-chief, that there were many heroes like these ones, but that the greatest hero of all were our people. Army with people like that cannot lose a war, said the general. On behalf of those who were honored, Major General Lazarević said that in heroic struggle for defense of the country, the soldiers accepted these medals on behalf of the whole nation. Commander of Air Force and Air Defense of Yugoslav Army, Lieutenant Colonel General Spasoj Smiljanić, on behalf of President of the Republic and Commander-in-Chief Slobodan Milošević, awarded medals to members of Air Force and Air Defense for their bravery and commitment in struggle against criminal NATO forces. President of Yugoslavia, Commander-in-Chief Slobodan Milošević, issued a decree on honoring members of Air Force and Air Defense of Yugoslav Army. Representative of Slobodan Milošević, Lieutenant Colonel Spasoj Smiljanić, Commander of Air Force and Air Defense, awarded medals to those who create messages of freedom of their country in its skies. The following individuals were honored for bravery, determination, discipline, and responsible conduct, which was exemplary, and awarded a medal for bravery to the following individuals: Major Radosavljević Zoran posthumously, Lieutenant Colonel Arizanov Ilju, Lieutenant Colonel Milutinović Predrag, Lieutenant Colonel Nikolić Nebojša, Lieutenant Colonel Perić Slobodan, and member of Air Defense, Lieutenant Nikolić Darko. Medal of Honor was awarded to Lieutenant Colonel Malinović Sreto, pilot, and Medal for Achievement in Defense and Security was awarded to Major Aleksa Milanović, pilot, First Class Captain Srđan Jovanović, pilot. In congratulating the honored officers, General Lieutenant Colonel Spasović stressed those of you who are standing here before us and our deceased colleague Radosavljević honorably, bravely faced an enemy who was 10 times stronger than you at the time when you faced an enemy of that caliber who attacked our country. You went into the fight bravely. We achieved excellent results in combat. Among you, there are those who shot down the planes that have never been shot down so far in the world. For 34 days, we, members of Yugoslav Army, members of air defense, with a huge support of our people, have been resisting enemy. We are resisting the attacks, and we are ready to defend our homeland, to defend the freedom of our people. I am assuring our military and state leadership that we from air defense shall, in proportion to our capabilities, fulfill our tasks in defense of our country. We are united, and we are honorably defending our homeland. On behalf of the honored officers, members of Yugoslav Air Defense, Lieutenant Colonel Smiljanic gave a speech. I wish to thank, on behalf of all those young soldiers that we are leading and who are fighting with us, everything that I would like to say right now, everything that I would like to say to our enemy is that knights and knighthood are still not extinct in our country. On behalf of all members of the Army and on my behalf, I would like to say that we, members of Air Force and Air Defense, in defending our country, have taken the saber out and will keep it in our hands with dignity. Congratulations on the medal that you were awarded, to you and to your colleagues. It was a secret assignment, but the medal and honoring were not. There were several assignments in our units, and several assignments led to this medal. And it wasn't only me who should be commended for this, but also my leaders and the rest of my colleagues. We shall continue until we win. I don't like to give speeches. I'd like to show our worth in the skies. That's the true message. Once I'm airborne, I will show what I'm worth. It will be said in the face-off with aggressor. The enemy does not have that which officers of Yugoslav Army can boast: the knowledge, abilities of its own people, spirit of freedom and love for the homeland. NATO aviation attacked once again civilian facilities near Pristina, Vranje, Surdulica, Kuršumlija, Šabac. During last night, they targeted civilian facilities in Belgrade, Kosovo, Novi Sad, Užice, Kraljevo, Sombor, and Bačka Palanka. During today's attack on Surdulica, our reporters stated there were many injured and civilians and fatalities. The attack on Surdulica today resulted in a great number of injured civilians and fatalities. An unheard of crime was committed against civilian population. The street of Jovan Jovanović Smaj and nearby streets are mourning. Peaceful and quiet residential neighborhoods were turned into a desolate site. 11 killer missiles were launched. So far, there are 20 civilians who were killed, including many women and children. The target of NATO attack was once again the office building Ušće. They bombed the antennas on the roof of that building. After a very strong detonation, there was no flames. The attack disturbed the residents of nearby buildings and guests of the Hyatt Hotel. Incessant NATO attacks on Pristina are continuing for many hours. This morning, they launched 8 missiles on the bridge between Pristina and Kosovska Mitrovica. 2 missiles also landed on a highway between Pristina and Podujevo. There were detonations to the southwest of Pristina. Tens of missiles also landed around Pristina. 6 missiles were dropped on civilian airport Slatina, on the transmitter, and neighborhoods of Vragolia, Belačevac, and Pomazatina. NATO fascists continued destroying civilian facilities and infrastructure in Kosovo. This morning, they bombed with 4 missiles the bridge on the highway between Pristina and Kosovska Mitrovica. The repair of the bridge has commenced so that by tomorrow the bridge will be somewhat operational, and until then the traffic is detoured. The site of the destroyed bridge near Mileševo was visited today by Nikola Šajinović, Deputy Prime Minister, Zoran Anđelković, Chairman of Temporary Executive Council of Kosovo, Veljko Odalović, Governor of Kosovo Region, and Ivica Mihajlović, Secretary for Information of Kosovo. NATO killers targeted tonight about 2:30 the village of Batuse near Pristina, inhabited by Serbs and Albanians. NATO criminals once again targeted civilian facilities, residential houses in this quiet village where there are no military targets. There's a huge damage, but luckily there were no injuries. Once again, the NATO fascists show what they're targeting in our country. NATO aviation launched 1 missile around 1:15 this morning on the bridge between Bačka Palanka and Ilok. Based on the information from the local headquarters, the bridge was not destroyed, but it is significantly damaged and cannot be used. 5 minutes after midnight, a barrage of explosions was heard over Kraljevo in an air battle unrecorded so far. For more than half an hour, air defense was responding on the attack of NATO airplanes. Decisive response of our air defense brought down several aggressor missiles. During this attack on Kraljevo, there were no fatalities. Units of air defense of Yugoslav Army responded to aggressors' attack in Mačvanski region. Based on the information of Civil Defense Headquarters, 2 missiles were shot down, one in Bogotić and the other one in Šabac municipality. The remains of the missiles damaged the houses in Šabac. Shrapnel went through the house and roof of Jovanovic family house. The farm buildings were also damaged, but fortunately there were no injuries. In honor of the National Day, Colonel General Nebojša Paković, commander of the Third Army, awarded medals to officers, non-commissioned personnel, and soldiers for their bravery and achievements in defense of the country in accordance with the decree of the President of the Republic of April 5th. In honor of the National Day of Yugoslavia in Pristina, a ceremony was held honoring officers, non-commissioned personnel, and soldiers who were awarded with medals. After national anthem was performed and after those who were killed were honored, representative of Slobodan Milošević, General Nebojša Pavković, stated that anyone who attempted to snatch a piece of our priceless soil shall pay dearly for that. We, the members of the Third Army and Yugoslav Army as a whole, shall do, as we have been doing all along, everything in order to prevent and stop any entry into our territory. Members of this Third Army are determined and committed to fulfilling its military, professional, and human tasks. This is why we shall do everything to preserve our homeland and to defend it from NATO aggression. On behalf of the honored individuals, Major General Vladimir Lazarevic gave a speech. We accepted these medals on behalf of all of the soldiers of Yugoslavia, but also on behalf of all of the citizens of Yugoslavia, convinced that this evil, the greatest evil of the 20th century, will soon face its end. We are ready to fulfill our tasks. General, we kindly ask that you give to the Commander-in-Chief our military greetings, but also our determination to fulfill our tasks successfully. Commander of Pristina Corps, Major General Vladimir Lazarevic, received a Medal of War Flag of the First Order. First Class Captain Goran Kerkez, the Medal of Knight's Sword of the First Degree. 16 officers and non-commissioned personnel, individuals were awarded Medal for Bravery. Colonel Dragan Živanović, Colonel Božidar Delić, Colonel Krasman Đelić, Colonel Mladen Čirković, Colonel Dušan Mandić, Colonel Mihailo Gergal, Colonel Siniša Trajković, Colonel Miloš Jošan, Lieutenant Colonel Miličko Janković, Lieutenant Colonel Ljubinko Đurković, Major Dragutin Timčevski, Major Zoran Đurić, who was posthumously promoted into the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, First Class Captain Ivica Stanković, Captain Bratislav Mihajlović, Captain Dejan Đokić, Lieutenant Milovan Vidić, reporter of Radio Television Serbia Milovan Drecun, and cameraman of Radio Television Serbia Tomislav Magaci. Medal for Achievement in Defense and Security was awarded to a non-commissioned officer and several privates, Lieutenant Lakićević Dragan, Dejan Đuzić, Private Zoran Grujić, and Sasha Milovanović. The medals for other members of 3rd Army will be given to them in their current deployment locations in sites where the homeland is being protected. Immediately after midnight, 3 detonations were heard near Čigoto and Zlatibor. Air defense responded and prevented launching of further missiles during their 2-hour attack. NATO aviation at 1:35 this morning bombed the transmitter in Mokra Gora. 3 hours later, they bombed the area of Bair near Kosovska Mitrovica. NATO aggressor planes at 10:45 for the 8th time bombed Vranje and the surrounding area. 2 missiles were dropped near the northwest area of the city. In Sombor at 11:45, a series of detonations were heard. There was a strong detonation around Novi Sad, obviously in the area of Fruška Gora. Aggressor targeted Novi Pazar as well, especially the village of Izbice, where a great damage was caused to 30 residential houses. His Holiness, Serbian Patriarch Pavle, together with Serbian archbishops and clergy of Belgrade churches, held a memorial service for the victims of NATO bombing in the Church of St. Apostle and Evangelist Marko. In a holy sermon honoring the souls of the victims, Patriarch Pavle talked about his years of service in Kosovo and reminded that even at that time he warned of a certain number of Albanians who used violence to promote ethnically clean Kosovo. The truth is never one-sided. In order to make conclusions, all sides must be heard, Albanians, Serbs, Turks, and those coming from elsewhere. Patriarch Pavle also added the following: "O Lord, we pray to you to do what you can to stop this misery caused by bombing and for the peace to come. Peace is needed for everyone, for us, for Albanians, for Turks, and everyone who lived there for centuries. O Lord, be merciful to everyone, including us, and bless the souls of those of your servants who were killed in Kosovo and here and elsewhere. Amen." American Apache helicopter crashed last night some 50 kilometers from Tirana and burst into flames. This is one of the 20 helicopters which NATO intended to use to assist its allies KLA terrorists in their attack on Yugoslav forces in Kosovo. Albania obviously became a NATO base, and refugee camps became recruitment centers for terrorists who are helping NATO in their attack on our country. Albanian volunteers are recruited in many Western countries and trained in refugee camps in northern Albania. Although NATO boasts that Apache helicopters are the most effective means for destroying tanks, experts warn that the helicopters will be vulnerable to Serbian anti-aircraft artillery. In a camp housing French forces stationed in Macedonia near Kumanova, 2 hand grenades exploded last night. This was reported by a spokesman for French forces in Macedonia. He said that there was a great damage, but did not inform about the casualties. However, well-informed sources report that there were casualties and injured because the grenades were thrown on the tents housing French soldiers. Kumarov police conducted an investigation but did not issue a statement, neither did the Ministry for Internal Affairs. More and more missiles and hit planes of NATO crash in Macedonia, disturbing the citizens. A strong detonation was heard today in Skopje, in the area of Petrovac Airport. Macedonian state radio reported that near Brod there were 2 strong detonations. Immediately after the detonations, there was a smoke and a fire. There is no official information. However, the villagers who only recently forced NATO officials to admit bombing the village of Bence now state that this time the detonation was caused by the crash of a NATO plane. Further evidence confirming that both local officials and NATO representatives concealed the bombing of Macedonian territory is the discovery of the remnants of NATO missiles near Paligrad village, as well as near the village of Gradovce. NATO alliance removed incriminating evidence from Gradovce village, but the villagers confirmed that it was the NATO plane that was shot down and then burst into flames. NATO's rescue mission lasted for 2 hours. They used helicopters and a large security force. The local press reports that NATO planes who are hit by Yugoslav air defense drop the bombs on purpose and then disappear in the mountains of northwestern Macedonia. Government of Serbia, in its today's session, chaired by Mirko Marjanovic, analyzed the market supplies of food and other consumer goods. It was concluded that there is a sufficient amount of goods on the market and that the decree on stability of prices is complied with. The inspection teams control the sales of goods and prevent the black market activity. The government also reviewed the spring farming season and concluded that it was well underway. The distribution of diesel fuel is sufficient for the farming season needs. In accordance with the long-term agricultural policy, the government in its today's session decided that large quantities of pork, chicken and lamb shall be bought off by the government. From the rubble of the destroyed building of Radio Television Serbia, 9 of our colleagues were extracted so far. The rescue teams continue clearing up the debris. From the rubble of the Radio Television Serbia building that was destroyed, the body of another of our colleagues was removed today. Nebojša Stojanovic, born in 1972, technician in the studio, was among those that were killed. The funeral of our colleague, Nebojša Stojanovic, shall be on April 28th in a graveyard in Rakovica. Unfortunately, this will not be a final number of fatalities. 7 more employees of Radio Television Serbia are not accounted for, but it is known that they were present in the building at the time of the bombing. 18 persons were injured, out of which 4 are still in a hospital. The experts from Yugoslav army, police, and civilian defense continue clearing up the debris of the RTS building, another civilian target that was destroyed in a genocidal war against the people of Yugoslavia. One of the most popular anchors of BBC, Jill Dunda, was murdered yesterday in London. This is another attack against media, journalists, and free speech that took place just 4 days after NATO proclaimed the journalist to be a legitimate target. Jill Dunda was involved in unresolved murders. She was informing the public on the dark side of the British society. She did what Radio Television Serbia has been doing all along, informing local and international public on the crimes of NATO alliance. Murderers shot BBC reporter in the head in cold blood, just as in cold blood NATO murderers bombed the building of Radio Television Serbia. The last assignment of the murdered reporter was the investigation of the killing of 47 civilians in Brixton. After the journalists were proclaimed by NATO to be a legitimate target, Jill Dunda became a target of those who don't want the truth on their crimes to come to light. By bombing Radio Television Serbia, NATO drew a line which just 4 days later was crossed by someone else. We still have to believe that Radio Television Serbia and Jill Dunda, BBC reporter, shall be the last and not the first victims of NATO criminals and all those dark forces who are threatened by truth and their journalists. In Strasbourg, where the European Parliament convenes, a delegation of Federal Parliament met with several dignitaries. Our delegation had numerous meetings on the eve of the debate on Kosovo. Yugoslav delegation led by Ljubiša Ristić had numerous meetings with the officials in European Parliament. The delegation of Yugoslav Parliament included Milan Božić. The delegation informed the representatives of European Parliament of criminal NATO aggression against Yugoslavia that caused numerous fatalities and huge destruction. Our delegation came to Strasbourg on the invitation of United European Left, and during their first meeting, the United European Left condemned NATO aggression. NATO is using non-existent humanitarian catastrophe to carry out genocide against Yugoslav citizens, the citizens of a sovereign European country. Gennady Zyuganov, president of the Communist Party of Russia, also met with the members of Yugoslav delegation. During the meeting, he condemned the aggression of Yugoslavia, demanded an immediate cessation to the aggression, and the efforts should be directed to finding a peaceful resolution. Yugoslav delegation also met with Johannes de Jong, chief of the European Council Department for Foreign Relations, who said that European Council must be included in the attempts to find a solution to the Kosovo crisis. During numerous meetings with the delegations of France and Portugal, as well as at the press conference held by Ljubiša Ristić this evening in the Council of Europe, our delegation reiterated a firm commitment of Yugoslavia to a peaceful political settlement of Kosovo crisis without foreign troops, with broad autonomy for Kosovo, equal treatment of citizens and ethnic communities, and respect of sovereignty and territorial integrity of our country.
Today, the House is scheduled